who puts the moon in the sky. He's the one who hung the stars, one by one. He's the one who makes the birds sing. He's the one who makes your dreams so high. He's the one who makes me smile. Day by day, Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Spider-Man. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Superman. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Batman. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than anyone. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Spider-Man. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Superman. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than Batman. Yeah, 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 yeah. Better than anyone. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend. Jesus, you're my superhero. You're my star, my best friend.
Ahoy there, children! It's me, your old friend Pirate Patty. I'm not the best pirate on the seven seas, but I am also not the very worst. And I'm back in my magnificent ocean-going sailing vessel, the Scrubby-Dee-Bubber Double Dub, also known as the Minnow. What an amazing adventure we had last week. We sailed to Philippi, where we heard about Paul and Silas and how they were telling people about Jesus, and they got put into jail. Even though they were in jail, they were singing songs and dancing and praying and telling people about Jesus. And then there was an earthquake, and the doors burst open, and Paul and Silas got out. And they even told the guard about Jesus. And they traveled all over the world telling people about Jesus. Say, do you Sprogs want to go on another sailing adventure with me? Great! First thing we got to do is put on our pretend sailing hats. Now, let's hoist up our pretend anchor. Hoisting up the anchor. It's a cash register. Now, let's grab our pretend ship's wheel and let's set sail! Looks like this breeze is turning into a bit of a fierce wind. And it looks like the sky is turning black. Well, I've been sailing for a long time. It's probably nothing. You know what they say? Red skies in the morning, sailors take warning. sharks here! Oh, put some whale oil on your hands! Put your loose change into a Ziploc baggie! Take that dog, put him on a leash! Take down those sails! Put up 3 more! Everybody be careful! The storm's coming really bad! Okay, let's steer this way. Oh, let's steer the other way. Oh, it's no use! It's raining hard! Oh boy, the storm is really bad! Shiver me timbers! We're taking on water! Too much water! I guess I should get rid of some things overboard that I won't need. Oh. I won't need this emergency lifeboat. I won't need this emergency life vest. I don't think I'll need my emergency water supply. Oh, what's that? The storm has passed. What's that I'm rapidly sailing toward? Uh-oh! Oh boy! Oh, Whiskers! It looks like we're wrecked for sure, scallywags! Shipwrecked! Say, what's that I see in the distance? It looks like an island. It is an island! It's the island of Malta! Can you say Malta with me? Malta! That's right! Hey, I know the island of Malta from a Bible story about our friend Paul. Paul was shipwrecked, just like us, on the island of Malta. Do you want to hear that story? Great!
Hey everybody, it's me, Lindsay again. And today, I have a really cool story from the Bible to tell you. It's about a shipwreck on the island of Malta. Did you get in a shipwreck today with Pirate Patty? Oh, silly Pirate Patty, I'm so sorry. But here's the thing, is when Paul got in a shipwreck, God took care of him, and he actually used it for good. Do you want to hear the whole story? Awesome. Well, it all started when Paul was sailing and sailing and sailing around because he wanted to tell so many people about how amazing Jesus was. Paul was sailing to a really far away place, and because it was so far away, sometimes he had to stop. And he had to get supplies, like food and water. And one day, when he was stopped getting supplies, they were getting ready to go to that really far away place, and they got back on the ship. But it was so windy. Can you act like the wind blowing? It was so windy. And usually, that's a really good thing if you're sailing a ship. But not today. It was so windy that it wasn't steering their boat in the direction that they needed to go. The wind kept getting stronger and stronger. And the captain on the ship was so scared. And the sailors on the ship were so scared. And Paul was so scared. You see, these really big, dark clouds came over their ship. And all of a sudden, it started to rain. And rain. And rain. And this huge thunderstorm was over their ship. And before they knew it, the waves were crashing and bumping into their ship. And all of the sailors were throwing things overboard, trying to keep their ship from sinking. The captain was so scared. And the sailors were so scared. And Paul was so scared when all of a sudden, he heard a voice. Paul, don't worry. I'm going to take care of you. Paul knew that voice was God, and that God was going to take care of him. He was so happy, he went to the top of the boat and said, "Guys, don't worry. God is going to take care of us." And the sailors were so happy, and the captain was so happy. And that night, they went to sleep. And the waves were still crashing, and the thunderstorm was still crazy. They woke up the next day, and they were safe. They walked out onto the ship, and they realized it was shipwrecked on the island of Malta. But everybody was okay. It was amazing. God took care of them, and Paul could keep telling everybody he knew about Jesus and about how awesome he was. And that's what Jesus wants us to do too. Tell about him.
I am so glad that Paul survived his shipwreck. Jesus told him that even though his ship would wreck, that he would be okay. These are sure tricky waters out here in Malta. I suppose I'll just scrape the barnacles off the old scrubble-bubble tub, break out the old duct tape, and get her back sailing again. Say, looks like I've got a bite on me bottom line.
Tell others about him.
Let's say it with her. What does Jesus want us to do?
Tell others about him.
Let's say it again together. What does Jesus want us to do?
Tell others about him.
Great! I'll see you scrogs next time. Ahoy, bye-bye.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Alex. This is me with my wife, Jess. And here's me with my friends, Joe and Austin. They're super awesome. You'd really like them. I really like being outdoors and going on adventures. The world is so cool. So I decided to follow and live my life with Jesus when I was 17. It was the best decision and it changed my life forever. You see, before I knew Jesus, I had a lot of fear. I was scared to be alone. Not like that everyone would leave me, but I wanted to feel like somebody knew me, that I could trust them, that they cared about me. And honestly, guys, before Jesus, that was pretty tough. But then I met Jesus, and my life was never the same. He really knew me and loved me. And since he was God, I could trust him. Living life with Jesus meant that he looked after me and cared for me in the most perfect way. Now, it doesn't mean that nothing bad is ever gonna happen or that I'll never be scared or even that I'll always be perfectly safe, but it does mean that he's always with me and he gives me exactly what I need in every moment. Life with Jesus means a life with protection and so much more. You know, there are some guys in the Bible named Paul and Silas, and they lived life with Jesus too. Their story is super awesome. They went through some really hard, scary stuff, but their whole lives, because of Jesus, showed how well Jesus can protect us. So check this out. You might remember Paul from last time. He also went by Saul. So Paul tried to live life without Jesus, and it wasn't great. In fact, he even hurt followers of Jesus. But one day, Paul met Jesus, and his life was never the same. He loved Jesus and devoted his whole life to telling everyone the good news of God's love. So Paul traveled the whole world, often with other people sharing this good news. For some time, he had a good friend join him named Silas. So Silas also loved Jesus, and they went wherever God asked them to share the great news of God's love. So one day, God asked them to go to a place called Macedonia. Now they knew that everywhere they went could be pretty scary because a lot of people didn't like the news they were sharing about Jesus. But Paul and Silas trusted God and they believed he was going to take care of them. So they took off for Macedonia. On the way, they had some really incredible moments sharing the news of God's love. They met some people who loved hearing the good news and became followers of Jesus too. It was awesome. But there was one day that something terrible happened. Some mean men who didn't like what Paul and Silas were doing in their town grabbed them and they took them to the rulers of the town. They made up these lies about Paul and Silas, saying that they were disturbing the town. The rulers didn't like that, and they ordered to have Paul and Silas beat up and then put in prison. They ordered the guard to watch them carefully, so there's no way to escape. They put shackles on their feet, and they locked the prison doors. See, these men, they were innocent. They didn't do anything wrong, but there they were, trapped in a prison cell. They must have thought, God, why did you send us here? Are you really with us and protecting us and taking care of us like you said you would? They probably thought, is it really worth living a life with Jesus? But Paul and Silas, they knew that it was true. They knew that life with Jesus was the best life possible, even if and when bad things happened. They trusted him. So one night, in their prison cell, they began to sing worship songs to God. The other prisoners, they heard them singing and they woke up and they sat up and they started listening to the words they sang. Words probably about God's love and how Jesus saved us. Through worship songs, Paul and Silas got to share the story of Jesus even when they were in prison. Isn't that crazy? Then, all of a sudden, an earthquake hit. And it shook the whole ground. And then all the doors of the prison broke open and the shackles on all the prisoners' wrists and ankles broke free. And they could all escape. Wow, look at what God is doing. But none of them did. You see, Paul and Silas, they had a hunch that God was up to something different. So they stayed put. Even the other prisoners, which is crazy, stayed put. It was crazy. God was doing something amazing. So the earthquake woke up the prison guard, and he ran to look at the damage on the prison. You see, it was dark outside. There's probably a bunch of dust from the earthquake, so he couldn't really see much. He couldn't really see if anyone had escaped or anything. He could only see the open doors on the prison. He knew right then that he had failed at his job. He assumed everyone escaped, and he thought his life was ruined. It was over. But just then, at that moment with the prison guard, Paul spoke up. He said, "Hey, it's okay. We're all here." The guard couldn't believe it. Why didn't they all escape? He knew it was because Paul and Silas had something different about them. And the guard, he wanted whatever they had. So he asked them, and they got to tell the guard all about Jesus and God's love. And you know what happened? That prison guard decided he wanted to live his life following Jesus too. The guard released Paul and Silas from prison, and they continued on their way, sharing with more people about God's love. Isn't it crazy how much God provided for them, and he took care of them? See, Paul and Silas, they had no idea what God was doing, especially when they got put in prison. But God protected them in the best way and made even bigger and better things happen through it. Paul and Silas saw that living life with Jesus brought them protection and so much more. Man, I want that. I want that so bad. But you know what? I can have that if I choose to live my life with Jesus. Living life with Jesus means a life with protection and so much more. It won't necessarily be an easy life or a life without problems. We'll definitely have those. I mean, look at Paul and Silas. They got beat up and put in prison. But a life with Jesus means a life to the full. And that's what Jesus promises. And that's what we'll get with him. Look at what he says here in the Bible. This is Jesus talking. And he says this in John 10:10. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. A life to the full is a life with Jesus.